Madam Speaker, I'm about to display a chart, which it's hard to present the information without the political undertones. But I would really want members to ruminate on what is about to be presented. The graph now being displayed shows GDP shown as gross value added at constant prices since independence. It shows that our most rapid period of economic growth was the decade immediately following independence. Economic growth averaged 6% per year in that decade. Since then, we have had short periods of growth punctuated by declines and crises. We had the oil crisis and the socialist experiment of the 1970s that led to massive capital flight and the exodus of skilled labor, leading to a 20% fall in GDP between 1974 and 1980. Madam Speaker, it took Jamaica until 1990 to get back to the level of output we had in 1973. In other words, it took us 17 years to recover from that first. And Madam Speaker, this was the biggest global health and economic crisis in 100 years. But the difference this time was that our recovery was V-shaped. A victory. And we recovered in 3 years. I really don't want to politicize this, but this is a fact. When you add up all those years, 8 years out of our 62 years as an independent country, recovering from crises. Let that sink in. 2 of the 4 major crises that we faced were directly caused by bad economic management of the PNP in the 1970s and 90s, accounting for 24 of the 38 years of crises. As a fact, not rewriting history, just bringing the facts. I didn't want to go back down this road because this is behind us. But when there are attempts to whitewash, separate and apart from our debt recovery efforts, Jamaica has a new feature in our economy that the other side can't claim. They weren't close. Their name can't call on that one. And that feature, Madam Speaker, is resilience. Yes. My administration has focused on building fiscal buffers through provisioning the National Disaster Fund. No administration put money inside here. No. Right? Maintaining high reserves. That's a this administration activity. Securing insurance and issuing catastrophe bonds. This is why we were able to recover quickly from the pandemic and other natural disasters and geopolitical shocks. Before the pandemic, Jamaica recorded 20 consecutive quarters of economic expansion. After the pandemic-induced contraction, we rebounded with 13 consecutive quarters of economic growth. Over the last 2 quarters, we had a temporary setback due to the impact of Hurricane Beryl and Tropical Storm Raphael. But, Madam Speaker, let me disappoint those who seem to be gleefully celebrating and wishing depression and recession on Jamaica. Let me disappoint them and disabuse them quickly. we will recover and return to growth in short order. We are certain that Jamaica, like any other small developing country, will experience shocks. With climate change and the growing local geopolitical uncertainties, we observe that shocks are becoming more frequent, more intense, simultaneous, and they overlap. So the one thing is certain, Jamaica is going to be hit by some shock. So Jamaica must therefore be prepared for shocks. And importantly, we must not create any shocks of our own. We must not create any shocks of our own, as happened in the 1970s and the 1990s. Resilience is in our culture. We little, but we talawa. My administration has translated this spirit of ours, talawaness, into our economy and government. We are resilient, and that is wholly and solely a policy objective of my administration. Resilience is my picnic. However, Madam Speaker, the reality is that except for the decade immediately after independence, our growth has remained anemic and far below what is required to achieve our vision of shared prosperity, higher incomes, and an economy that generates opportunities for all. The next chapter of Jamaica's economic journey must therefore be about accelerating growth while maintaining fiscal and macroeconomic stability. Resilience is an important part of accelerating growth, as without the capacity to withstand and adapt to shocks, recovery can be slow. Our increased resilience means that we are already on the path to faster growth, better equipped to navigate challenges and seize new opportunities. Madam Speaker, in November 2024, I outlined the key pillars of the government's growth strategy, Aspire. A, access to economic opportunities for all, that is the inclusive growth agenda. Safety and security, S. P, people and our focus on human capital development. I, for infrastructure development. R, for reform of the bureaucracy to improve ease and speed of doing business and to reduce the cost of doing business. And E, economic diversification. Madam Speaker, the A in Aspire. I must emphasize that the first and most fundamental pillar of our growth strategy is access and inclusion. Growth must be for all Jamaicans. True progress is not measured solely by GDP figures, but by how many lives are improved, how many doors are opened, and how many Jamaicans, regardless of background, have a fair shot at success. Madam Speaker, I have said this before, but let me say it again so that there is no room for misunderstanding and misinformation. The government does not believe in trickle-down economics. The notion that if we simply grow the economy at the top, prosperity will somehow find its way to the rest of the society. History has shown that growth must be deliberately structured to be inclusive. That is why our approach to economic expansion is people-centered and opportunity-driven. It is about broad-based empowerment, ensuring that growth fuels investment in education, skills training, small business development, and community infrastructure. It's about expanding opportunity and ensuring that no one is left behind. This government is systematically strengthening our social protection framework, expanding opportunities, and breaking the cycle of generational poverty. We are not just talking about it, we are taking decisive actions. In 2021, we introduced Jamaica's first ever social pension, providing a guaranteed income of $15,000 for vulnerable Jamaicans 75 years and older, ensuring that they can live in dignity in their golden years. We have ramped up investment in the new social housing program, which provides safe and secure housing for the country's most vulnerable. Over 300 houses have been built or handed over or under construction, transforming lives and communities. In 2022, we implemented the Tourism Pension Scheme, making Jamaica the first country in the world to implement a comprehensive pension plan for tourism. In 2024, we launched the Jamaica Entertainers and Creatives Insurance Plan. Where is Minister Grange? To protect our artists, musicians, and creatives, recognizing their vital contribution to our economy. We do real things, things that really make a difference. Not some, pull out of the hat promise of $1 billion where they don't even say where that $1 billion is going to come from. We increased funding for the program of advancement through health and education path by 30% in 2024. We are actively working on introducing unemployment insurance, a critical reform that will provide financial relief to Jamaicans who face sudden loss. Madam Speaker, while strengthening our social safety net is crucial, we must go further. It is not enough to support people in times of hardship. We must create pathways out of poverty. Last year, I announced the Hope for Children Trust Fund, a groundbreaking initiative. The reality is that thousands of children in low-income families reach adulthood without any savings or assets to help them get a start in life. This lack of capital perpetuates generational poverty. We must break this cycle. I don't think people understand, well, I'm sure people do understand, the difference in life outcomes for a child who grows up in a household where that household has some asset base, whether it is a house or a piece of land, or their father had a car, or their mother operated a business. Relative to a household where the child will have no asset on which to rely. Total difference. And that, Madam Speaker, is the critical characterization of the Jamaican society. And that is why we see that Jamaica has this wide disparity in terms of income distribution. The income distribution disparity really starts with the initial endowment of households. I mean, you'll always have households that have endowments and fail. So households that start off with some assets and then they lose it. And then you'll have households who start off with no assets but gain it. But that is not going to be enough to close the gap. Madam Speaker, we are not a socialist government, but we believe in being instrumental in pursuing real, equitable policies that will make fundamental changes to the income and asset profile of the country. And that is why we have this Hope for Children Trust. Through the Hope for Children Trust Fund, every eligible child will be provided with a long-term savings account funded annually by the government. The funds will accumulate with interest and will be accessible on or after the child's 18th birthday for transformational purposes, such as education and skills training, home or commercial property acquisition, or business investment. Madam Speaker, though the government will be the central contributor to this fund, the way in which we are developing it is that, which now often happens, persons privately could contribute to the fund generally, or they could specifically say, I want to contribute to this person. I mean, it happens regularly where, for example, a distant family member, as they say, I take this child and I adopt this child informally. But now we are creating a formal structure where private sector, private individuals could also, if they choose, and I'm encouraging them when the fund is fully mobilized, to make a contribution to it. So that a child who comes from a household with no asset at 18 will know that they have something to start the world with. Whether they want to go buy 2 goats and cow, which when I go out into the country, I see young men come up to me and say they want goat, they want cow, they do little farming, we'll help you. If you want to buy tools, we'll help you. If you want to further your education, you have that money there. If you want a down payment and a deposit on a little piece of land, you have that money there. So we will give you that start to correct the historic intergenerational endowment inequality that has plagued us from the days of enslavement. So, Madam Speaker, any Jamaican child born on or after the 60th anniversary of independence, that's August 6, 2022, who is part of a PATH household or a ward of the state will be eligible to register under the program. We are making progress with determining the legal structure of the fund and examining options for how the fund will be managed and administered, and I'm pleased to report that during the upcoming financial year, the government will seed the fund with 200 million Jamaican dollars. And again, I put out the call to the private sector, start looking at making contributions to this fund. We welcome it. Madam Speaker, the government has pursued a deliberate strategy of socializing wealth by enabling Jamaicans to own shares in key national infrastructure assets through the stock market, literally paying dividends to the people of Jamaica. This approach democratizes economic opportunities, allowing citizens to benefit directly from state-owned enterprises, transitioning to public ownership. In May 2019, we divested Wigton Farms, and in March 2020, we divested 80% of Trans-Jamaica Highway. Tens of thousands of small investors have benefited from dividend income and capital gains through ownership of these shares, aligning national development with wealth creation and broad-based economic empowerment of the people. Unlike the PNP who socialized debt while transferring wealth from the poor to the rich during the FinTech era, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to report that the offer for sale for the remaining 20% of the shares of Trans-Jamaica Highway has been oversubscribed with over 22,000 applications totaling $12 billion. Madam Speaker, Jamaican people, get the message that this government is about creating wealth. Madam Speaker, this is a vote of confidence in Jamaica. These investors know that Jamaica today has the strongest economy since independence. This is not rhetoric. This is not an opinion. This is an undeniable fact backed by empirical data on inflation, unemployment, exchange rate, balance of payment, net international reserve, debt to GDP ratio, and poverty reduction. Madam Speaker, creating wealth and making it accessible to all is the DNA of the JLP administration, and this is how we accelerate growth. There are several other assets that the government is preparing to bring to market so that the ordinary Jamaicans can participate and share in the value they create when paired with private sector enterprise and innovation. At this stage, I can announce that the Jamaica Mortgage Bank is being prepared as the next asset to come to market.